Undercover owner notices his employee with baby living on a street. Next day he did this. The fluorescent lights of Metropolitan Solutions buzzed overhead as James Chin adjusted his worn janitor's uniform, a far cry from the tailored suits that usually graced his closet. As the CEO of this Fortune 500 company, he'd grown increasingly disconnected from the day-to-day realities of his employees. That's what had prompted this undercover mission: 3 months of working alongside his staff, learning their stories, and understanding their struggles firsthand. Tonight was different, though. For the past few weeks, he'd noticed Sarah Martinez, a customer service representative, staying well past her scheduled hours. While other employees rushed home at 5 p.m. sharp, Sarah would linger until nearly midnight, taking extra calls and meticulously organizing her workspace. There was something about her that caught his attention. Perhaps it was the way she maintained unwavering professionalism despite the dark circles under her eyes, or how she would disappear into the break room every few hours to make hushed phone calls. "Good evening, Sarah," James said, pushing his cleaning cart past her desk. She looked up, offering a tired smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hi, Jim," she responded, using the name he'd adopted for his undercover role. "Don't mind me, I'm just finishing up some reports." James pretended to empty the trash bins, watching as Sarah quickly minimized the window on her computer screen. For a split second, he caught a glimpse of what looked like job listings for overnight positions. The observation nagged at him. Why would someone already working long hours be looking for night work? "You know," he ventured, "I've got some leftover sandwich from lunch if you'd like it." Sarah's stomach audibly growled, but she shook her head. "That's very kind, but I'm fine." "Really?" The practiced way she declined help raised red flags in James's mind. He'd seen it before in his philanthropy work. People in dire situations often became experts at deflecting assistance, their pride becoming both a shield and a barrier. That night, as Sarah finally packed up her belongings, James made an impulsive decision. He followed her, maintaining a discreet distance as she left the building. Instead of heading toward the parking lot, Sarah walked to the bus stop, clutching her purse tightly. The late-night bus dropped her off in an industrial area of the city, far from any residential neighborhoods. James's concern grew as he watched Sarah duck into a 24-hour convenience store. Through the window, he saw her approach the counter with a small can of formula and a jar of baby food. She counted out coins carefully, returning the formula when she came up short. His heart sank. Somewhere in this situation, there was a baby involved. Sarah emerged from the store with just the jar of baby food and began walking toward the underpass of the highway. James followed, his footsteps masked by the rumble of overhead traffic. What he saw next stopped him in his tracks. Hidden behind a concrete pillar, partially sheltered from the elements, was a makeshift living space. A large cardboard box had been reinforced with wooden pallets, creating a crude shelter. Sarah approached it, and a young woman, barely out of her teens, emerged holding a baby who couldn't have been more than 6 months old. "Thanks for watching him, Maya," Sarah whispered, taking the infant into her arms. "Same time tomorrow?" The young woman nodded, accepting a few crumpled bills from Sarah before disappearing into the night. James watched, rooted to the spot, as Sarah settled into the cardboard shelter with practiced movements. She pulled out a thin blanket, wrapping it around herself and the baby with the skill of someone who'd done this countless times before. The infant began to fuss, and Sarah's voice carried softly through the night air as she sang a lullaby in Spanish, gently feeding him the baby food she'd just purchased. "I know, mi amor," she murmured. "Mama knows it's not much, but things will get better. I promise." The scene before him shattered every preconception James had about his employees' lives. Here was someone who worked tirelessly at his company, maintaining professional composure while literally living under a bridge with an infant. The thought that this was happening right under his nose, to one of his own employees, made him physically ill. As if sensing his presence, Sarah suddenly looked up, her body tensing. "Who's there?" she called out, clutching her baby closer. James quickly stepped back into the shadows, his mind racing. He couldn't reveal himself, not yet. Any direct intervention might spook her, potentially causing her to quit her job out of embarrassment or fear. He'd seen enough cases of corporate charity gone wrong, where well-meaning gestures ended up humiliating the very people they were trying to help. No, this situation required a more delicate touch. As he made his way back to his car, James began formulating a plan. It would have to be subtle, gradual, and most importantly, preserve Sarah's dignity. He pulled out his phone, making a quick note of the location and jotting down ideas. What he didn't notice, in his preoccupation, was Sarah watching his retreating figure with a mixture of fear and resignation. She'd recognized the janitor's uniform, and now her secret was out. As she held her sleeping son closer, Sarah began mentally preparing herself for the worst, ready to run if necessary, to protect herself and her baby from whatever consequences this discovery might bring. Little did she know that this night would mark the beginning of a journey that would transform not just her life, but the entire culture of Metropolitan Solutions. The man she knew as Jim the janitor had set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything she believed about fate, kindness, and second chances. The weight of what he'd witnessed kept James awake that night, lying in his penthouse apartment that suddenly seemed obscenely luxurious. Tomorrow, he decided, would be the first day of change, not just for Sarah, but for every employee who might be silently struggling under his watch. The question was, how to help someone who was too proud to accept direct assistance. The morning after his discovery, James arrived early at Metropolitan Solutions, his mind heavy with the responsibility of his newfound knowledge. He'd spent the night researching local homeless shelters and family assistance programs, but something told him Sarah wouldn't accept such direct intervention. During his morning cleaning rounds, James observed Sarah arriving precisely on time, impeccably dressed despite her situation. Her hair was neatly styled, likely done in the public restroom of the convenience store he'd seen her visit. She carried a large bag that he now realized probably contained everything she and her baby owned. Yet there she sat, handling customer calls with unwavering professionalism, never letting on that she'd spent the night under a bridge. "Morning, Sarah," he called out casually, emptying her trash bin. "Quite cold last night, wasn't it?" She stiffened almost imperceptibly, her fingers pausing over her keyboard. "Yes," she replied carefully. "But the weather's supposed to improve soon." James noticed how she avoided meeting his eyes, probably wondering if he'd seen her last night. He needed to act fast, but carefully. That afternoon, he made his first move. Using his connections as CEO, through a series of discreet calls made during his lunch break, James arranged for an anonymous benefactor to prepay for a week's stay at the Comfort Inn, just 3 blocks from the office. The tricky part would be getting Sarah to accept it without raising her suspicions. He enlisted the help of Maria, the kind-hearted front desk clerk at the motel, briefing her thoroughly on the situation. That evening, as Sarah walked past the motel on her usual route, Maria rushed out, calling to her. "Miss! Excuse me, miss!" Maria waved an envelope. "Are you Sarah Martinez? Someone left this for you." Sarah stopped, clutching her bag closer. "There must be a mistake. I don't know anyone who would." Maria pressed the envelope into her hands. "The gentleman was very specific. Sarah Martinez, works at Metropolitan Solutions, carries a blue shoulder bag. That's you, right?" Inside the envelope, Sarah found a key card and a note. 7 nights prepaid. Room 215. No strings attached. Sometimes angels appear when we least expect them. James, watching from across the street, saw the range of emotions cross Sarah's face: suspicion, fear, hope, and finally, desperate gratitude. He knew she would probably spend hours debating whether to accept this mysterious gift, but the forecast called for rain tonight. With a baby to consider, she couldn't afford to let pride stand in the way. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work looking slightly more rested, though still guarded. James implemented the second phase of his plan. He'd arranged for a prepaid card to be delivered to her desk, loaded with $500 for groceries and baby supplies. The card came in a simple envelope with another note. "For the little one. No one should have to choose between formula and food. Sarah's hands trembled as she read the note. She quickly slipped the card into her purse, looking around nervously to see if anyone had noticed. James pretended to be absorbed in mopping the floor, but he didn't miss the tears she quickly wiped away. Over the next few days, James orchestrated a series of small but meaningful interventions. An anonymous delivery of diapers and baby clothes appeared at the motel front desk. A gift certificate for a nearby laundromat showed up in Sarah's work mailbox. Each gift was accompanied by a different note, each signed simply, "A friend." But James's plan wasn't just about immediate relief. He began laying the groundwork for long-term change. During his breaks, he casually struck up conversations with Sarah, learning more about her story. She'd been a straight-A student with dreams of becoming a financial analyst before an unplanned pregnancy and a partner who disappeared left her struggling to survive. Her parents, conservative and disappointed, had cut ties, leaving her to face parenthood alone. "You know," he mentioned one day while cleaning near her desk, "my mother raised me alone too. Worked 3 jobs sometimes." Sarah looked up, really seeing him for the first time. "How did she manage?" "One day at a time," James replied, thinking of his own mother's struggle. "But she always said education was the key to breaking the cycle. Did you ever think about finishing your degree?" Sarah's eyes clouded over. "That dream died when Ricardo was born," she said softly, then caught herself, realizing she'd revealed her baby's name. James pretended not to notice her discomfort. "Dreams don't die, Sarah. Sometimes they just need a little wake-up call." That conversation sparked something in Sarah. James noticed her spending her lunch breaks studying financial websites on her computer. She started taking free online courses during her evening shifts at the motel, after Ricardo had fallen asleep. But not everything went smoothly. One morning, Sarah arrived at work visibly shaken. James overheard her on the phone with the motel. The week's stay was ending, and she had nowhere else to go. Before she could spiral into despair, another envelope appeared, 2 more weeks, prepaid, with a note reading, "Keep moving forward. You're stronger than you know." The mysterious gifts had an unexpected effect on the office dynamics. People noticed Sarah's gradually improving appearance and mood. Rumors circulated about her secret admirer. Some suggested it was Tyler from accounting, others wondered if she'd won some kind of contest. Sarah herself seemed torn between gratitude and unease, clearly wondering what strings might eventually be attached to this generosity. James watched it all unfold, careful to maintain his cover while setting up the next phase of his plan. He'd seen something in Sarah, not just a person in need, but someone with untapped potential. The way she handled her workload while managing her desperate situation showed remarkable resilience and capability. One evening, as Sarah packed up to leave, she paused by James's cleaning cart. "Jim," she said quietly, "you wouldn't happen to know anything about these gifts, would you?" James kept his expression neutral as he wrung out his mop. "Me? I'm just a janitor, Sarah. But whoever it is, maybe they see what I see, someone who deserves a chance to shine." Sarah studied his face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm dreaming all of this. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "Maybe," James suggested. "It's not about waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe it's about being ready when opportunity knocks instead." As Sarah walked away, James smiled to himself. She had no idea that the biggest opportunity was yet to come, and that her mysterious benefactor had only begun to set the stage for her transformation. The next phase would require more than just anonymous gifts. It would challenge Sarah to step out of her comfort zone and prove to herself, not just to others, what she was capable of achieving. What James didn't realize was that his simple acts of kindness were already creating ripples throughout the company. Employees who had never given each other a second glance were beginning to pay attention to their colleagues' struggles. The story of Sarah's secret benefactor had awakened something in the corporate environment. A reminder that behind every employee number was a human story waiting to be acknowledged. The morning air crackled with tension as Sarah stared at the email in her inbox, her hands hovering uncertainly over the keyboard. Opportunity for advanced position financial operations specialist. Read the subject line from HR. The role would mean a significant pay increase, benefits, and most importantly, stability. But there was a catch. Candidates needed to pass a comprehensive skills assessment and prepare a presentation on improving the company's financial efficiency. James, still maintaining his janitor disguise, watched from the corner of the office as Sarah's expressions cycled through disbelief, excitement, and fear. He had carefully orchestrated this opportunity through discreet suggestions to the HR department, emphasizing the need for internal promotion of promising employees. What he hadn't expected was the fierce competition the position would attract. "Are you going to apply?" he asked casually while emptying her trash bin. Sarah laughed nervously. "Me? Against people with degrees and years of experience? I don't think so, Jim." "Why not?" James challenged, leaning on his mop. "You've been studying financial analysis in your free time, haven't you? I've seen those websites on your screen." Sarah's eyes widened. "You noticed that?" "I notice a lot of things," James replied with a knowing smile. "Like how you can spot accounting errors in customer bills that everyone else misses. Or how you've memorized our entire product pricing structure." The seeds of confidence he'd planted began to take root. That afternoon, Sarah submitted her application, though her hands shook as she clicked send. What followed was 2 weeks of intense preparation that tested every ounce of her resilience. James watched as Sarah transformed her motel room into a makeshift study center. Through the window during his evening drive-bys, he could see her surrounded by printouts and notebooks, baby Ricardo sleeping peacefully in a portable crib nearby, another anonymous gift that had appeared at her door. But balancing preparation with her regular duties and childcare proved challenging. One particularly stressful morning, Ricardo had a fever, forcing Sarah to call in sick. James seized this opportunity to arrange for an emergency daycare service to contact her, offering a promotional free trial for working parents. "It's like the universe is conspiring to help me," Sarah confided in him later that week. "Every time I hit a wall, something appears to help me over it." "Maybe the universe wants you to succeed as much as you do," James replied, hiding his smile. The day of the skills assessment arrived. 5 candidates gathered in the conference room, including Tyler from accounting, who had 3 certifications and an MBA. Sarah sat at the end of the table, trying to appear confident despite being the only one without formal qualifications. James had carefully designed the test himself, ensuring it measured practical problem-solving abilities rather than just theoretical knowledge. As he mopped the hallway outside, he could hear the hiring committee's questions through the door. "Your customer service records show an unusual pattern," one interviewer noted. "You've handled significantly more complex cases than anyone else in your department. Why is that?" Sarah's voice came clear and steady. "I noticed that many customers who called about billing errors were actually struggling to understand our financial products. So I started creating simplified explanations and identifying patterns in their confusion. It helped reduce repeat calls by 47%. The committee exchanged impressed looks. This was exactly the kind of practical innovation they needed. The presentation round proved even more challenging. Each candidate had to propose solutions for improving company efficiency. While others presented complex theoretical models, Sarah drew from her personal experience on the front lines. "Our current system treats every customer the same way," she explained, her voice growing stronger with each word. "But I've identified 5 distinct customer profiles, each requiring a different approach. By tailoring our solutions to these profiles, we could reduce resolution time by 35% and increase customer satisfaction scores." Her practical insights, born from countless hours of hands-on experience, stood out against the more academic approaches of other candidates. Even Tyler looked impressed. That evening, as Sarah packed up her desk, an envelope appeared. Inside was not just the official offer letter for the financial operations specialist position, but also a key to a small apartment in a safe neighborhood, with the first month's rent paid. "I can't accept this," she told James, fighting back tears. "The job, yes, but the apartment, it's too much." "Sometimes," James replied, carefully choosing his words. Accepting help isn't about what we deserve. It's about what we're brave enough to do with the opportunity. Sarah moved into the apartment that weekend. As she settled Ricardo into his first real crib, in his first real room, she found another envelope taped to the window. Inside was a handwritten note. Your journey isn't just about you anymore. Every step you take forward shows your son what's possible. But success brought new challenges. Some coworkers, especially those who had lost out on the promotion, began to whisper. How had a customer service representative with no degree landed such a prestigious position? The rumors ranged from office politics to inappropriate relationships with management. James noticed Sarah's confidence wavering under the scrutiny. He knew the next phase would be crucial. She needed to prove herself not just capable, but exceptional. He began leaving advanced financial analysis materials on her desk, anonymously of course, along with sticky notes highlighting her unique insights. What Sarah didn't know was that her mysterious benefactor had planned everything meticulously. The position, the apartment, even the timing of the daycare service, all were part of a larger strategy to help her build not just a job, but a career. As Sarah settled into her new role, she began making waves. Her intimate knowledge of customer pain points, combined with her natural analytical abilities, led to several innovative solutions. She streamlined processes that had been inefficient for years, earning reluctant respect from even her biggest critics. 1 month into her new position, Sarah received an unexpected email. The company's annual leadership conference was approaching, and she had been selected to present her customer profile analysis to the executive team. As she read the email, her hand instinctively reached for her phone to share the news with Jim, the janitor who had become her unexpected confidant. Little did she know that this conference would change everything, and that her mysterious benefactor was much closer than she imagined. The stage was set for a revelation that would shake the foundations of everything she thought she knew about her recent streak of good fortune. The accusation came like a thunderbolt on an otherwise ordinary Wednesday morning. Sarah had just finished presenting her latest financial efficiency report when Angela Reeves, a senior accountant who had also competed for her position, burst into the conference room clutching a stack of papers. I have proof, Angela announced to the stunned room, her voice trembling with barely contained anger. Evidence that Sarah Martinez has been manipulating company funds to benefit herself. The room fell silent. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face as Angela slapped a folder onto the conference table. Inside were printouts of transaction records, bank statements, and highlighted transfers that, when taken out of context, painted a damning picture. Look at these transfers, Angela continued, her voice rising. Mysterious payments appearing in various accounts, all coinciding with her promotion. The timing of her sudden improvement in circumstances is suspicious, don't you think? Sarah's mind raced. The transfers Angela was referring to must be the anonymous help she'd received, the motel payments, the prepaid cards, the apartment deposit. From the outside, without context, it did look suspicious. I can explain, Sarah began, but her voice cracked. How could she explain without revealing her previous living situation? Without exposing that she'd been homeless, living under a bridge with her baby? The department head, Mr. Thompson, frowned as he examined the documents. These are serious allegations, Ms. Martinez. We'll need to launch a formal investigation immediately. In the meantime, I'm afraid we'll have to suspend your access to all financial systems. Sarah felt the walls closing in. Everything she'd worked for, every step forward she'd taken, was about to crumble. Her thoughts flew to Ricardo, now enrolled in proper daycare, finally having stability in his life. She couldn't lose this, not now, not like this. Just as Mr. Thompson was reaching for the phone to call HR, a voice spoke from the doorway. I believe I can shed some light on this situation. All heads turned to see Jim the janitor, still in his gray uniform, standing with an unexpected air of authority. Sarah noticed something different about his posture. He stood straighter, his usual humble demeanor replaced by something more commanding. Jim, Mr. Thompson said, confusion evident in his voice. This is a private meeting. Those transfers. Jim continued, pulling out his own folder. We're all authorized by the CEO's office as part of a pilot program for employee development. I know because I've been documenting everything. Angela scoffed. The janitor? What could you possibly know about executive-level programs? Jim smiled, and for the first time, Sarah saw something familiar in that smile. Something she'd seen in company photos but couldn't quite place. He pulled out a series of documents, each one meticulously dated and notarized. Every payment, every gift, every mysterious appearance of help was part of a documented corporate initiative. Here are the authorizations, signed by the CEO himself. And here, he said, pulling out a final document, is the proof that Ms. Martinez was selected for this program based on her exceptional performance metrics, long before any assistance was provided. Sarah stared at Jim in disbelief. How did he have access to these documents? How did he know about everything that had happened to her? Mr. Thompson examined the papers carefully, his expression shifting from suspicion to embarrassment. These appear to be in order. Angela, do you realize the seriousness of making false accusations? Angela's face had turned pale. But he's just a janitor. How could he possibly? Am I? Jim asked quietly. Look closer at those authorizations. Check the signature. The room fell into stunned silence as Mr. Thompson's eyes widened in recognition. Sarah leaned forward, finally seeing what everyone else was realizing. The signature on the documents matched the one that appeared on their paychecks. The signature of James Chin, CEO of Metropolitan Solutions. But before the revelation could fully sink in, another crisis erupted. Warning bells began blaring from Sarah's computer. Her latest financial analysis program had detected a serious anomaly in the company's international accounts, one that needed immediate attention. We're losing thousands by the minute, Sarah exclaimed, temporarily forgetting the drama unfolding around her. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she pulled up transaction logs. Someone's exploiting a lag in our Asia-Pacific trading system. The room watched in amazement as Sarah, despite her suspended access, used her backup codes to initiate emergency protocols she had developed but never implemented. Within minutes, she had isolated the problem and created a temporary patch, saving the company from what could have been millions in losses. That, Jim, or rather James, said with satisfaction, is why we chose her. Not because she needed help, but because she had the potential to help us all. Angela slumped in her chair, her accusation forgotten in the wake of Sarah's quick thinking. Mr. Thompson was already on the phone with the IT department, praising Sarah's swift action. But Sarah barely heard any of it. She was staring at Jim, at James Chin, the CEO of Metropolitan Solutions, the man who had been watching over her all along. Why? She managed to whisper. Because true talent doesn't always come with degrees and certifications, he replied softly. Sometimes it comes with calloused hands and a determination that can't be taught in any university. The news spread through the office like wildfire, not just about the CEO's undercover mission, but about Sarah's handling of the financial crisis. By the end of the day, the same people who had whispered about her promotion were now talking about her brilliance in averting a major financial disaster. But for Sarah, the biggest shock wasn't the vindication or even the revelation about Jim's true identity. It was the realization that someone had seen her value even when she was at her lowest point, not to exploit it, but to nurture it. As the excitement died down and the office slowly emptied, Sarah remained at her desk, trying to process everything that had happened. James Chin, still in his janitor's uniform, approached her one last time. The conference is next week, he said simply. I think you'll find that after today, you have more than earned your place there. But Sarah, he added with a gentle smile, perhaps leave the part about living under the bridge out of your presentation. Some stories are better saved for inspiring others who might need hope. Sarah nodded, understanding that this crisis, painful as it had been, had given her something precious, the confidence to stand on her own merits, regardless of her past. The path ahead was still challenging, but now she knew without a doubt that she deserved to walk it. The annual Metropolitan Solutions Leadership Conference was held at the Grand Meridian Hotel, A sprawling luxury venue that made Sarah feel simultaneously out of place and exactly where she belonged. The past week had been a whirlwind of preparations, with her mind still reeling from the revelation about Jim's true identity. Yet here she was, seated in the front row of the main conference hall, her presentation notes clutched tightly in her hands. The room buzzed with excitement. Rumors had spread about a major announcement from the CEO, who had been conspicuously absent from public view for the past 3 months. Most employees had assumed he was traveling overseas, exploring new market opportunities. If they only knew he'd been cleaning their offices and emptying their trash bins. Sarah's attention was drawn to the elaborate stage setup. A large screen displayed the company logo, and beneath it, a curious tagline. "Success starts with seeing." She wondered if James had chosen those words specifically, thinking about how he had truly seen her when she was invisible to everyone else. The lights dimmed, and the company's chief operating officer stepped up to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began. "Over the past quarter, Metropolitan Solutions has undergone a revolutionary internal study. Today, we're here to share the results of that initiative and to recognize an employee who exemplifies everything our company strives to be." Sarah's heart began to race. She hadn't been told exactly what she would be presenting, only that she should be prepared to share her journey. The CEO continued, "But first, I'd like to welcome our CEO, James Chin, who has been conducting this study in a rather unconventional way." The side door opened, and gasps filled the room. Instead of his usual impeccable suit, James Chin walked onto the stage wearing the familiar gray janitor's uniform. A murmur of confusion rippled through the audience as recognition slowly dawned on hundreds of faces. "For the past 3 months," James began, his voice carrying the same warmth Sarah had come to know during their conversations by her desk. "I've been working alongside you as Jim, the night janitor. Not to spy or to find faults, but to understand. To really see what makes our company work, not from quarterly reports or performance metrics, but from the ground up." The audience sat in stunned silence as James shared his experiences, carefully omitting any details that might identify Sarah. He spoke about the dedication he witnessed, the untapped potential he discovered, and the ways in which traditional corporate structures sometimes failed to recognize true talent. "Today," he continued, "I want to share a story that changed not just one life, but the very foundation of how we think about employee development. Sarah Martinez, would you please join me on stage?" Sarah's legs felt like lead as she stood. The walk to the stage seemed to take an eternity, each step accompanied by the soft murmur of whispers from her colleagues. As she reached the top of the stairs, James extended his hand, not the polished hand of a CEO, but the slightly callous one she'd come to know as belonging to Jim the janitor. "Sarah," he addressed her, but his words were meant for everyone. "When I first noticed you working late into the night, I saw someone with extraordinary potential facing extraordinary challenges. What I discovered was something remarkable, not just talent and determination, but a spirit that refused to be broken." The screen behind them came to life, displaying graphs and statistics. "In just 3 months since her promotion, Ms. Martinez has implemented changes that have reduced our customer service response time by 40%, developed a new financial analysis system that recently prevented a major security breach, and created a customer profiling method that's already being adopted by our international offices." Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as James continued. "But these achievements, impressive as they are, aren't why we're recognizing her today. We're recognizing her because she showed us what's possible when we look beyond traditional metrics and see the true potential in our people." The screen changed to show a new company initiative, the Metropolitan Solutions Employee Development Program. Sarah's eyes widened as she recognized elements of her own journey built into its framework: mentorship opportunities, emergency assistance funds, childcare support, and educational resources. "Sarah's story," James announced, "has inspired us to create a comprehensive support system for all our employees. But more importantly, it's taught us that success isn't just about individual achievement, it's about creating an environment where everyone has the opportunity to excel." He turned to face her directly now, his voice softening. "Sarah, You once told Jim the janitor that you were waiting for the other shoe to drop. Today, I want you to know that there is no other shoe. What you've achieved, you've earned through your own merit. The help you received simply removed the barriers that shouldn't have been there in the first place." The audience erupted in applause, but Sarah barely heard it. Her mind flashed back to those nights under the bridge, holding Ricardo close, promising him that things would get better. She thought about all the little coincidences that had helped her along the way: the motel room, the daycare, the training materials. Each piece had been carefully orchestrated not just to help her survive, but to help her thrive. James handed her the microphone, and Sarah took a deep breath. Looking out at the sea of faces, many of whom had doubted her, some who had supported her, and all who were now seeing her in a new light, she began to speak. 3 months ago, I thought success meant simply making it through another day, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. Today, I understand that success is about more than survival. It's about having the courage to accept help, the determination to make the most of every opportunity, and the wisdom to help others once you've found your footing. As she shared her story, carefully edited to protect her dignity while maintaining its impact, Sarah noticed something remarkable happening in the audience. People were reaching for their phones, not to check emails or take photos, but to make notes. Department heads were nodding thoughtfully, and HR representatives were furiously scribbling ideas. Her journey, she realized, wasn't just about her anymore. It had become a catalyst for change, a testament to the untapped potential that might be hidden in any employee, waiting for the right opportunity to shine. The revelation of Jim's true identity wasn't just a surprise ending to her story, it was the beginning of a new chapter for Metropolitan Solutions. And as Sarah concluded her speech to thunderous applause, she caught James's eye and saw in it the same twinkle she noticed in Jim the janitor's gaze so many times before. She realized that while his identity had been a disguise, his kindness had always been genuine. In the weeks following the leadership conference, Metropolitan Solutions underwent a transformation that rippled through every level of the organization. Sarah found herself at the center of it all, but not in the way she had expected. Rather than being put on display as a success story, she was empowered to help shape the company's new direction. James Chin called her into his office, his real office this time, not the janitor's closet, to discuss her future. The space was impressive but somehow less intimidating than she had imagined, perhaps because she could still see traces of Jim the janitor and the CEO's warm smile. "I have a proposition for you," James said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "We're establishing a new department, employee development and financial innovation. I want you to lead it." Sarah blinked in surprise. "Lead it? But I've only been in management for a few months. And in those few months, you've demonstrated more insight into our company's needs than most people do in years," James replied. "But this isn't just about your professional skills. It's about your perspective." The role, as James outlined it, would combine Sarah's financial acumen with her unique understanding of employee challenges. She would oversee the implementation of the new support initiatives while continuing to develop her innovative financial systems. "There's something else," James added, sliding a folder across his desk. Inside was a complete scholarship package for Sarah to complete her degree in financial management, with a flexible schedule that would allow her to balance work, studies, and motherhood. "I can't possibly," Sarah began, but James held up his hand. "This isn't charity," he said firmly. "This is an investment, in you, in your future, and in the future of this company. Sometimes, Sarah, accepting help is how we become strong enough to help others." That philosophy became the cornerstone of Sarah's approach to her new role. Over the next 6 months, she worked tirelessly to establish programs that would identify and nurture talent throughout the company. Her first initiative was a comprehensive evaluation of all entry-level employees, looking for hidden potential that traditional metrics might miss. The results were staggering. They discovered a maintenance worker with a knack for solving complex logistical problems, a cafeteria worker who had innovative ideas for improving company efficiency, and countless others whose talents had been overlooked. But Sarah's proudest achievement was the establishment of the Bridge program, named not for the bridge she once lived under, but for its role in bridging the gap between potential and opportunity. The program provided emergency assistance, childcare support, and professional development resources to employees facing personal challenges. One morning, as Sarah was reviewing applications for the bridge program, a familiar face appeared in her office doorway. It was Angela Reeves, the same accountant who had once tried to destroy her career. "I heard you're accepting applications for the mentorship program," Angela said hesitantly. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to help, but..." Sarah studied her former adversary for a moment before gesturing for her to sit down. "Actually, you're exactly the kind of person this program is meant to help. Someone who has the skills but needs guidance in using them constructively." The interaction reminded Sarah of something James had told her during their janitor days. "Sometimes the people who push us down are the ones most in need of being lifted up themselves." As autumn turned to winter, Sarah received an unexpected message from James. He wanted to meet her at an address in the suburbs on Saturday morning. When she arrived, Ricardo bundled up against the cold in her arms. She found James standing in front of a modest but beautiful house with a "sold" sign in the front yard. "Before you protest," he said, seeing her expression, "this isn't a gift. It's an opportunity. The company has a new home ownership program for department heads. 0 down payment, reasonable mortgage terms, and a location 10 minutes from both the office and Ricardo's daycare." Sarah walked through the house in a daze, taking in the small backyard where Ricardo could play, the sunny kitchen where they could share meals, and most importantly, the stability that came with having a place to truly call home. "There's one condition," James added, his eyes twinkling with that familiar mix of kindness and mischief. "The program requires participants to mentor other employees working toward home ownership. Your story, your journey, it needs to be shared with others who might be where you once were." That evening, as Sarah sat in what would soon be her new living room, watching Ricardo take his first wobbly steps across the carpet, she reflected on how far they'd come. The bridge that had once been their shelter now seemed like a distant memory, yet she knew she would never forget its lessons. She took out her phone and opened her calendar, already filling up with appointments, meetings with program participants, classes for her degree, and development sessions with employees she was mentoring. At the top of her screen was a quote she'd chosen as her department's motto. "Success isn't just about rising to the top, it's about bringing others with you." The next morning, Sarah walked into Metropolitan Solutions with a new sense of purpose. Her office, once a symbol of how far she'd come, now felt like a launching pad for how far others could go. On her desk sat a small hand-carved wooden bridge, a gift from James, with a simple inscription: "Every bridge crossed becomes a bridge built for others." As she settled into her chair, Sarah noticed a young woman in customer service staying late, much as she used to do. Instead of just watching, she walked over and introduced herself. "Hi," she said warmly. "I'm Sarah. Would you like to grab a coffee? I'd love to hear your story." The woman looked up, surprised and a bit uncertain, just as Sarah had once been. And in that moment, Sarah realized that the greatest gift James had given her wasn't the job, the house, or even the opportunities. It was the ability to recognize herself and others and the power to do something about it. The cycle of kindness that had begun with a janitor noticing a struggling employee had grown into something much larger than any one person. It had become a testament to the fact that sometimes, the most powerful changes start with simply seeing someone for who they could be, rather than who they appear to be. And so, Sarah's new beginning became a beginning for countless others, proving that success isn't just about the height of our achievements, but about the number of hands we extend to help others climb alongside us.